You are standing in the open air. No walls around you, no clothes on your body. The wind touches every part of you the same way it touches the grass, the trees, the animals moving nearby. And nobody around you thinks anything of it. Not one person looks away. Not one person feels shame. This was not a fantasy. This was, for most of human history, simply Tuesday. Here is the part that surprises almost everyone. The idea that nakedness is inherently shameful, that bodies must be hidden, that desire must be concealed behind fabric and silence. None of that is ancient. It is astonishingly recent, and once you understand what actually governed intimacy and modesty for our ancestors, you realize the rules you live by today are not human nature. They are one particular story, told by one particular set of societies that eventually took over the world. Let's go back, not to a specific date, but to a way of living that lasted far longer than anything since. For most of the last few 100,000 years, humans lived in small, mobile bands, moving with the seasons, following food, water, and game. Clothing, when it existed at all, was practical: a wrap for warmth, a covering for thorns and rough ground, a layer against cold nights. Anthropologists who have studied surviving band societies, groups like the Hadza of Tanzania or, historically, indigenous peoples in warm climates across the world, consistently found the same pattern. Nudity, partial or full, was simply normal daily life in warm environments. It carried no automatic sexual meaning. A body doing its chores, walking to water, tending a fire, was just a body doing its chores. The link between skin visible and sexual invitation, that feels so obvious to you today, did not exist in the same form. So how did intimacy actually work, if not through the layers of concealment we associate with it now? The answer lies in something far more powerful than clothing: structure. Every known human society, no matter how small or ancient, organized who could pair with whom through kinship systems, taboos, and social rules. Not through hiding bodies, but through defining relationships. Anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss spent much of his career studying exactly this. His work on kinship systems showed that early human groups were held together not by modesty codes, but by intricate rules about marriage, exchange, and alliance between families and clans. Who you could partner with was decided by lineage, by which group you belonged to, by obligations between families, not by what anyone was or wasn't wearing. Privacy around intimacy existed, but it was social and relational, not built around fabric. This is a crucial distinction. Privacy is not the same as concealment of the body. Every human society studied has had some concept of a private moment, a private space, a boundary around intimacy itself. But in band societies, that privacy came from context, going to a separate space, a specific time, an unspoken social agreement that this moment was not for public participation, not from garments. Think about it structurally. If everyone is unclothed as a matter of course, then nudity stops functioning as a signal at all. It becomes background noise, the same way you don't register someone's shoes as remarkable. What carries meaning instead is behavior, proximity, ritual, and context. A couple stepping away from the group at a certain time of day, a specific gesture, a specific place known within the group as set aside. The signal moved from what covers the body to what the body is doing and where. Anthropologist Helen Fisher, who has spent decades researching the biology and evolution of human attachment, has pointed out that pair bonding and mate selection in early humans were driven overwhelmingly by social and reproductive strategy, alliance building, resource sharing, protection of offspring, not by systems of visual modesty. Attraction operated through courtship behaviors, gift exchange, proximity, and social negotiation between families or individuals. The absence of clothing did not remove desire. It simply meant desire was regulated somewhere else. In custom, in kinship law, in ritual, in consent structures specific to each culture. And this is where the taboo becomes the real technology. Every documented human society, without exception, has incest taboos and structured rules about who can and cannot pair with whom. These rules did far more regulatory work than clothing ever could. They controlled genetic health, alliance building between groups, and social stability. A body being visible was irrelevant next to the question of which two people or two families were permitted to be bonded together in the first place. So where did the idea of the shameful, hidden body actually come from? Historians of dress point to a slower, later shift, tied not to universal human instinct, but to the rise of agriculture, property, and organized religion. Once societies became settled, once inheritance of land and resources through specific bloodlines became economically critical, controlling paternity became a much higher stakes problem than it had been for small, mobile bands. Certainty about who a child's father was mattered enormously when it determined who inherited land, livestock, and status. Clothing, seclusion of women, and modesty codes emerged in many of these settled societies as tools to control and verify lineage, not as timeless expressions of universal human shame. This is a strange thing to sit with. The blush you feel at exposure, the instinct to cover, the discomfort around discussing bodies plainly. These are not fossils from the deep evolutionary past, They are closer to social software installed much later, once property and inheritance made certainty about parentage economically important. That does not mean early humans had no boundaries, no private moments, no sense of consent or refusal. Every society studied by anthropologists has shown structures of consent, courtship, and relational negotiation. What differs is not whether boundaries existed, but where those boundaries were drawn, on behavior and relationship rather than on the visible body itself. This reframes something important about how you think about your own instincts. If modesty around nudity is not hardwired but historically and culturally installed, then a great deal of what feels like an automatic universal human reaction is actually a story your particular culture told you, repeated so often across generations that it now feels like biology. This matters for how you study the past. When you look at cave art, ancient figurines, and burial sites depicting unclothed human bodies, you are not looking at a completely different framework for what a body meant in public space, one where visibility carried little charge and where the real regulation of intimacy happened through kinship, custom, ritual, and law. Understanding this does not strip meaning from human intimacy. If anything, it reveals how much work societies have always done to structure it, just not through the mechanism you assumed. The body was never the variable that needed controlling. The relationship was. So the next time you picture a prehistoric human standing in open air, unclothed, unembarrassed, surrounded by their band, resist the urge to project your own culture's instinct for shame onto that image. That person was not living in a world without rules around intimacy. They were living in a world where the rules were written somewhere else entirely. In kinship, in taboo, in alliance, in consent between people and families, not in cloth.